that peace process will be legitimate. If they're not all in the room, I think that we will continue to see these types of developments playing out because everyone is still unwilling to say the full extent of what's wrong.
Right, let's move to Guinea now, where the military junta there has suspended three major political parties, including former President Alpha Conde, ahead of a disputed constitutional referendum. Who else does the ban target?
Well, the ban target a variety of, so it's Conde's Rally of the Guinean People.
Mm-hmm.
It targets two other political parties that I'm not familiar with in terms of their extent and their popularity. But I think at the issue level, what we're seeing here is that this is, I think dictatorships are almost operating like criminal syndicates, if I were to explain it a little bit further by saying, when there are particular forms of fraud that we become aware of as the public, the syndicates understand our increasing intelligence, and when the banks create protections, then they move to another level of sophistication. One of the biggest moments in Africa where a referendum went negatively was when Robert Mugabe tried to have a referendum on land reform in the year 2000. He did not think he would lose the referendum. He lost the referendum because the farming unions, the workers' unions, then pushed back against that, and Morgan Tsvangirai led the charge against the referendum and defeated Robert Mugabe. So it almost seems as if dictatorships themselves are now studying other dictatorships and the moments wherein those dictatorships faced turbulence and are modifying their approach. So when I read the story that, the junta is now suspending the top three political parties, including the former president's party, it seemed to me to say, they are now trying to make sure that the referendum does not have opposition speaking against the referendum, because they want to then create a pathway for Doumbouya to be able to come into power and continue to be in power for a very long period of time. So as you go to elections, as you try to negotiate constitutional principles, similar to what happened in the 80s in Zimbabwe. Robert Mugabe and his friends created a constitution that basically put a lot of powers in the presidency and then sustained the Robert Mugabe presidency for 20 more years. Doumbouya seems to be taking from that book and then trying to push into a situation where he can then be in power for a very long period of time. We've seen all of these, let's call them post-2019 dictatorships, playing a variety of games with the global community because they need international legitimacy to be able to access the financial systems, to be able to travel to these international countries that they definitely enjoy getting healthcare services from. And they want donor funds from the NGOs and, the Red Cross and other donor institutions. So they try to pretend like that they're not dictatorships and they're having some form of processes like elections, like referendums. But on the ground, they're taking all of the steps necessary to make sure that they don't actually have a challenge for when they push for these types of constitutional amendments and reforms. So the way that I'm taking the story is that what we are seeing with this junta basically is a repetition of history, where Doumbouya is now going in a direction where he wants to be a strong man and make sure that there's no real challenger to him, because the role that was going to be played by the opposition parties and by these major political parties in a discussion about a referendum is that the referendum is illegitimate, the constitutional amendments are not in line with the interest of the people, and they are a power grab to help Doumbouya stay in power. And that is why effectively this suspension of them is just a way for him to open the path for himself to not have opposition. And then we'll have a referendum like a Rwandan election where 98% of the people agree with the referendum terms. And then you get told that it was a free and fair referendum, and therefore we should agree that all of these democratic regression, institutional, adjustments are such that we should just agree because the people voted. But clearly, when the people vote in a situation they're being repressed and suppressed, we should not be embracing that, Asanda. Yeah. But the institutional voices on the continent are not going to say anything, unfortunately.
On that same topic of referendums and elections, northwestern Libyan municipalities, 7 of them, voters in there, went to the polls on Saturday, a week late after a security attack on an electoral commission facilities. The elections are seen as a key step in restoring local governance in the midst of all that's happening in Libya and the divisions there. Can these elections pave the way for a nationally unified government, in your view?
Well, I'm not sure because the revolution or the Arab Spring in Libya was in 2011. We're in 2025 now, and we've had a few false starts about elections, and we even saw one of Gaddafi's sons trying to re-emerge and run for a national election. So at this point, we'll have to wait and see. My concern is just that the two centers of power, Tripoli and Benghazi, have created their own economies at this point. They are both trading oil, they are both getting weapons, and they are supported by different groupings on the global stage. One set of entities is supported by the Gulf Council of Nations, and the other set of entities is supported by the rivals to the Gulf Council. And what you'll see is Saudi Arabia and Qatar are on different sides of this issue. What this suggests is that the election in and of itself is not going to be enough to resolve some of these issues, but we have to be hopeful because, the people of Libya have been going through a very difficult period. 14 years of war, strife is nothing, comfortable to live through. But the fact that there are still being attacks on electoral commission facilities at this point is a bit of a concern for me. But as we wait and see, Asanda, I just hope that finally this country is getting to a turning point. But I'm not sure whether the Americans have this on their agenda, if this is on the agenda of the international community in the way that we have Gaza, in the way that we have Ukraine. If not, it may very well mean that this could continue because it's not in the interest of the global community to resolve at this point. The nations that are buying this oil from Libya, from these two centers of power, Tripoli and Benghazi, are all of these European nations, the EU, Russia, they are all taking part, Turkey, in the facilitation of the funding of these grouping. And the weapons that are showing up in Benghazi, in other parts, are actually weapons that are manufactured in Europe. So we have to be concerned about whether or not the leaders of these nations will take this issue seriously, because if they do, it could lead to an increase in their oil prices and all of these things. And I'm not sure that they want to do that at this point, but I'm still optimistic as a default position.
And then briefly and lastly, because we've got about a minute left, human rights lawyers and NGOs in Eswatini are suing the government over its acceptance of 5 US deportees. And then also in Uganda, they've agreed to accept US deportees without criminal records or unaccompanied minors, according to the Foreign Ministry. What do you make of the actions against these decisions, and also these countries that are accepting US deportees, and how that will influence politics and human rights in these countries?
Yeah, so I think that the countries that are accepting these deportees either have greedy leaders or they are afraid of Donald Trump and don't want to push back and are taking just a token of people. But I do think that the human rights issues are very important, because throughout these cases, Donald Trump is trying to rewrite the global refugee order and trying to reimagine what that looks like. And what it will do is to create open air prisons in war-torn countries, where if you're trying to escape that war-torn country, you're just sent to another war-torn country. I'm very worried about that, and I think that this step is an important step. Asanda, will have to see whether the courts in Eswatini are independent or will just agree with the king's intervention. So this is definitely something to follow.
Jamie, thanks so much again for your time. It's always great catching up with you.
Pleasure. Have a good week to everyone, especially you.
Thank you. Thanks. Oh, because it's still Women's Month, right? So yes, I get a special one. Thank you so much. That's Mighty Jamie, our resident analyst, giving us the roundup wrap. Let's get our news headlines. Here is Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News headlines. The African perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. The Democratic Republic of Congo's military auditor general has formally told a military court that he is seeking the death penalty for the former President Joseph Kabila, who is being tried in absentia for crimes including homicide, rape and torture. South Africa's African National Congress Party veteran and former government minister Naledi Pandor says the party must scrutinize all leaders that are placed in the position of power. And France says it will summon the U.S. ambassador to Paris, Charles Kushner, over allegations that it's failing to tackle a surge in anti-Semitism. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Right, let's take a first look at what's been happening in the sports. And on a Monday, it's always busy because it was a mad weekend in terms of sports. Let's find out what happened with Musibudi Makura. Good morning.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you so much, Peter. Very good morning from the sports desk. So Sudan advanced to the semi-finals of the Total Energies African Nations Championship tournament after edging out Algeria 4-2 on penalties in Zanzibar, setting up a last four meeting with Madagascar. So Sudan held their nerve in a dramatic shootout at the Amman Stadium after a 1-1 draw across 120 minutes with goalkeeper Mohamed Abuja, the hero after saving two penalties in that spot kick. Now, Kwesi Appiah's side, who topped Group D, remain unbeaten in the tournament and continue to build on their remarkable resurgence. Meanwhile, Senegal head coach Souleymane Diallo held his players for adhering to his strategic demands as they beat co-host Uganda 1-0 on Saturday. This to also reach the 2024 CHAN semi-finals. So, the defending champions found themselves under a lot of pressure for large spells in their semi-final at the Mandela National Stadium in Kampala, but they were resolute in defence as Marc Arona Diop made about 5 changes in that encounter. So Senegal will face off with two-time champions Morocco in the semi-finals that get underway on Tuesday. And some cricket news now. South Africa's Proteas captain Themba Bavuma has admitted that his side was outplayed by the Australians in the third and final one-day international as they went down by a massive 276 runs on Sunday. Bavuma noted that the host side had a good batting display and put together key partnerships at the Great Barrier Reef Arena, and his team had no answers on the day. He says they will sit down and look at exactly what went wrong to try and rectify those mistakes.
We were put under pressure from the first over. We just didn't recover. Obviously, as a bowling unit and a team, I think the guys batted obviously very well up front. Like I said, put us under pressure, and they were able to stretch their partnership. So, yeah, we probably just didn't pitch up today. For whatever reasons, we'll still have those chats, those debriefs. It wasn't our best display of cricket today.
Right, so the Proteas, though, did win the series 2-1 after claiming the first two games, and Bavuma was happy for especially the younger members of the team. And this was the 5th consecutive ODI series victory against a team ranked 3 places above them in the world rankings.
Well, winning a series, number one. It's never easy coming to Australia, whatever team that the guys put out.
Bundesrova 7-5 and 6-1. So Sabalenka is aiming to become the first woman since Serena Williams in 2024 to successfully defend the singles title in New York. She had reached at least the last 4 in each of the 3 Grand Slams so far this season, losing the finals of both the French as well as the Australian Open. The Belarusian will face Polina Kudermetova next, the Russian advancing after her opponent Nuria Perez Diaz of Spain retiring injured. Elsewhere, former Wimbledon champion Marketa Vondrousova defeated Russia's Oksana Salekemiteva 6-7 and 7-6 to set up a second round match against American McCartney Kessler, while Jelena Ostapenko will face either Taylor Townsend or Antonia Rurisk in the next round. This after Latvian defeated China's Zhang Zhengyu 6-4 and 6-3 in the first round. And finally, in golf news, Tommy Fleetwood held his nerve to win the Tour Championship and finally claim a first PGA Tour title at the 164th time of asking. So emotion poured out of the 34-year-old Englishman after he holed the winning putt on the 18th green. His European rider teammate and friend Justin Rose was greenside to film the final putt and celebrations on his phone as Fleetwood wrapped up a 3-shot victory on 18 under par to secure the FedEx Cup and as well as $10 million in prize money. It is also an 8th career title for Fleetwood, whose previous 7 came on the European-based DP World Tour, and also means he's shaken off the unwanted tag of being the nearly man on the American circuit. So 2 times previously this season he had either led or jointly led after 3 rounds without completing the victory. He also had 30 top 5 finishes over his career, which is 6 this year, which was also the most of anyone without a win. Well, that concludes your sports news this hour. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, simply send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or give us a call. The newsroom line is +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Mosibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Parlez-vous couramment le français? Êtes-vous passionné par la radio? Et êtes-vous qualifié pour travailler en Afrique du Sud? Envoyez-nous votre CV et vos 3 minutes démo en MP3 à @channelafrica.co.za pour avoir une chance de rejoindre la famille Channel Africa. Si vous n'avez pas de réponse après 14 jours, cela signifie que vous n'avez pas été retenu. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Start your day right with Channel Africa Breakfast.
That smells delicious.
Live, 5 days a week.
And now let's check in with what's happening in the world of business as we say good morning to Buntle Headbush. She has our details.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thanks, Asanda, and good morning. In our top story this morning, Libya's state-run National Oil Corporation says it will soon host a Libyan-US Energy Forum. The forum is aimed at boosting partnerships and investments in the North African country's oil and natural gas sector. Libya is one of Africa's biggest oil producers, but its oil output has been disrupted repeatedly in the chaotic decade since 2014. The company says the Energy Forum will be held with the US company Freedom First and will be attended by representatives from leading US energy firms along with Libyan investors and officials. South African power utility Eskom has reached a milestone of 100 consecutive days without load shedding. The company has attributed this to its generation recovery plan introduced in March last year and the hard work of its team in stabilizing the grid. So far this financial year, Eskom has logged just 26 hours of load shedding and 144 days of reliable power supply. Spokesperson Daphne Mukwena says this is a significant breakthrough building on 2024's progress when South Africans enjoyed 352 load shedding free days.
The resilience of our generation fleet continues to improve with unplanned losses due to breakdowns now at 6,035 megawatts, well below the 7,000 megawatts threshold. The last time Eskom recorded unplanned losses below this level was on 27th of September 2020, when the figure stood at 6,829 megawatts. These operational gains are not just milestones, they are stepping stones towards larger goal, ending load shedding for good.
Meanwhile, South Africa's Northern Cape Province's Treasury has committed to support municipalities in the province that are still on the Eskom Municipal Debt Relief Program. This is after 4 municipalities qualified for the first Eskom debt relief write-off. Following the intervention of National Treasury, Eskom has agreed to implement a 1/3 debt write-off of over $20 million owed by municipalities. Provincial Treasury spokesperson is Khalalelo Motsima.
Northern Cape Provincial Treasury proudly congratulates Soplaiki, Umsobomvu, Ubuntu, and Siyancuma municipalities for qualifying for the first Eskom debt relief write-off. Together, these municipalities have reduced their Eskom debt by over 354 million rand after meeting the strict conditions of the program. This milestone demonstrates their commitment to sound financial management and improving municipal viability.
Oil prices have edged higher today after Ukraine stepped up attacks on Russia. The attacks have fanned concerns that Russian oil supply could be disrupted, while expectations of a cut in the U.S. interest rates have buoyed the outlook for global growth and fuel demand. Brent futures rose 3 cents to $67.76 this morning, and Brent has climbed slightly to $67.84 a barrel in the last hour. Indonesia's trade minister has urged the European Union to immediately remove countervailing duties on biodiesel imports. This after the World Trade Organization backed the Southeast Asian country on several key claims in a complaint to the trade body. Indonesia brought its complaint to the WTO in 2023, alleging the EU's imposition of duties on imports of its biodiesel. The ministry says this victory proves that the Indonesian government consistently complies with international trade rules without implementing distorting trade policies. The EU's Indonesia's third largest destination for palm oil products and one of Indonesia's major markets for biodiesel, and has imposed countervailing duties of 8% to 18% since 2019, alleging Indonesian biodiesel producers benefit from grants, tax benefits, and access to raw material below market prices. And now taking a look at the indicators. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,533 naira. In Botswana, it's 13 pula 33. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 15, and in Zambia, it's 23 kwacha 10. Moving to the BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 rial 42. Russia, 80 rubles 36. India, it's 87 rupees 34. China 7 yuan 16, and South Africa $1 is trading at 17 rand 42 cents this morning. $1 is trading at 73 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,365 and platinum at $1,349 per ounce, while the price of Brent crude oil, as mentioned earlier, is at $67.84 a barrel. And those are your business news. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Buntle Headbush.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. The KwaZulu-Natal Convention Bureau, in collaboration with Millvest Advisory and the city of Umhlathuze, bring you the 2025 Tourism Investment Forum Africa. As a global platform for local action, the Tourism Investment Africa aims to promote the secondary and tertiary cities and regions as attractive investment and tourism hubs. Be part of the movement transforming tourism in Africa. Join us for the TIFA 2025 from August 27 to 29 at Tembela Venue, Richards Bay, KZN, South Africa. G20 in Africa, exclusive to Channel Africa.
It's time for our G20 fact of the day. Did you know that engagement with non-government groups is an essential part of how the G20 operates? The G20 membership considers ideas from a variety of sources, including business, civil society, labor, thought leaders as well as youth. Now, these groups draw together representatives from G20 countries to provide input to the forum's work, and have the potential to make strong contributions to addressing global economic challenges. And that's our G20 fact for the day.
G20 in Africa, exclusive to Channel Africa, championing Africa through solidarity, equality, and sustainability. New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
South Africans are increasingly relying on loans to cover living costs despite a slight easing in inflation. And that's according to the second quarter 2025 debt index from Debtbusters. The report shows that 95% of those seeking debt counselling had a personal loan, while 54% had short-term payday loans. Even after recent interest rate cuts, high interest loans are putting pressure on households, with the average share of income spent on debt rising to 70%, and that's the highest since 2017. Bene Sager is the executive head of Debtbusters, and he spoke to Channel Africa's Tutongo Beni.
I think the debt index reveals for us a few things. Firstly, that incomes have been flat in terms of incoming cohorts of debt counseling for the last several years. And when compared against inflation over the same period, the incoming cohorts are feeling poorer and poorer. They have less disposable income compared to, several years ago. In fact, roughly about 50% less disposable income when we compare to the cohorts from several years ago. Secondly, we see that average debt levels have also risen. And this is a function of incomes not increasing and expenses increasing, and the consumers having to have to plug the gap between the two. What we also saw that the pressure is particularly most acute on the highest earners and the lowest earners, in the sense that they need almost 80% of their take-home pay to service their debt obligations. So those were the main things that the index highlighted.
What impact has the interest rate decrease had on consumers who are under pressure?
We think the interest rate reductions have provided some relief, along with ability to access some retirement funds via what's called as the two-pot retirement system. Those definitely have helped. Inflation is also much lower than the levels we had experienced a year or 2 years ago. On the other hand, because of the lack of growth in incomes, as well as the cost of particularly things that are regulated like electricity and petrol and other things have going up rates significantly. Consumers are under severe pressure. And while the interest rate reduction has provided some relief, it's not enough for many of the consumers.
Among other findings, the latest debt index also indicates that income growth remains significantly behind expense growth. What does this mean?
I think, as we stated before, this means our ability to spend on things that, in terms of disposable income, our ability to spend on things that we would like to spend on becomes less and less. In real terms, South Africans are poorer, significantly poorer, than we were 10 years ago. And I think that's the danger that, for those of us already planning for retirement, it makes it very difficult because, your income isn't really keeping up in terms of the ability to put aside money to cater for retirement. And I think this means that we all have to work extra harder in terms of making room and finding the money to put away so that, retirement becomes a reality rather than a dream.
What needs to be done to change this trend?
I think we need growth in the economy. We need the ability to lend to a broader range of people, especially since 2020. This has been very limited. We need more economic activity, particularly small businesses and small business lending. We need less regulation to allow for investment and ability to, create more jobs so that more and more people are economically employed and they can contribute to the economy.
That was Benny Sager, Executive Head of Debt Busters in South Africa, speaking to Channel Africa news reporter Tuton Gobeni.
New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
South Africa has taken a major step in rail sector reform. Transport Minister Barbara Creecy announced on Friday in Pretoria that 11 private train operating companies have been selected to operate on the state-owned Transnet network, following Cabinet's approval of the National Rail Policy in 2022 and last year's network statement. Out of 25 applicants, the move is expected to improve rail efficiency and services. Channel Africa's Michael Mbewe has more.
In a move to ease freight logistics in South Africa, Transnet is teaming up with private rail companies to solve the puzzle. At the heart of this development is the National Rail Policy approved by Cabinet in March 2022. Addressing the media, Transport Minister Barbara Creecy explained how this policy underpins the drive to open up the Transnet network to third-party operators while keeping rail infrastructure in public hands.
In March 2022, Cabinet approved the National Rail Policy, which lays the basis for third-party participation in the Transnet network while the infrastructure remains state-owned. The rail policy advances structural reforms that enable private sector investment, optimal utilization of the rail network, and effective economic regulation that facilitates equitable access to the network and ensures that it is properly managed.
Creecy went on to outline the wide-ranging benefits of third-party access, highlighting how greater private sector involvement will not only boost efficiency and lower costs, but also help modernize the rail network and position rail as a greener, more competitive option in the freight sector.
The benefits of third-party access, among other things, will include improving utilization of the network and thus increasing rail efficiency, reducing network unit costs by involving more operators, increasing revenue to contribute to the investment in the maintenance and modernization of the network, and reducing the external costs of freight logistics and improving the competitiveness of rail as a more environmentally friendly mode of transport.
She emphasized that the evaluation process was thorough and transparent. Out of 25 applicants, 11 train operating companies have successfully met all the requirements and will now move forward to negotiations and contracting.
The evaluation process, according to Transnet, has been rigorous and was conducted in full compliance with the standards of fairness and transparency. Of the 25 operating companies that applied, 11 have met the necessary requirements and will proceed to the next stage of negotiations and contracting.
Looking ahead, Creecy highlighted that the new operators are expected to add around 20 million tons of freight annually starting in 2026-27 financial year, supporting the government's ambitious goal of moving 250 million tons of freight by rail by 2029.
The Transnet Rail Infrastructure Manager estimates that the new train operating companies will carry an additional 20 million tons of freight per annum from the 26-27 financial year. This will supplement Transnet Freight Rail's forecasted volumes and contribute to government's target of increasing freight moved by rail to 250 million tons by 2029.
Echoing the minister's remarks, Transnet Group CEO Michelle Phillips described the evaluation as a rigorous multi-stage process. She clarified that this was not a bidding competition, but rather a thorough assessment of each applicant's background, technical capability, and financial soundness before moving forward.
We ran quite a robust process. We had several gates that people had to pass through. But I have to say, I think we have to distinguish this from a bidding process. There were no bids. There were applications made by interested parties. We took them through several gates, what you would call the administrative checks. So we would have a look at who are you, where do you come from, do you meet the requirements of the application process. We also looked at your technical, whether you were technically sound. We looked at whether you were financially sound.
Michael Mbewe, Channel Africa News, Johannesburg.
Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
South Africa's youth unemployment remains alarmingly high at 45.5%, with limited spaces in traditional universities adding to the challenge. To address this, the African Virtual Institute of Accountancy has launched a fully online learning platform endorsed by the South African Institute of Professional Accountants, SAIPA. Now, Channel Africa's economics reporter Innocent Samosa attended the launch and spoke to Professor Rashid Small, who began with the question, how will Avia keep its virtual first model affordable and also accessible, especially for students in rural areas with poor connectivity?
The first thing is that we are allowing open access. No minimum criteria, as long as you have the ambition to pursue a career in accountancy. Secondly, it's also in terms of affordability, we have broken it down into micro credentials and micro badges, which means you study as you have the money. And our fees per micro badge starts at 1,500, and you complete the badge as you have your time or whether you are working or not, and you can then proceed into the next badge. And once you accumulate the badges, you'll have a certification, a micro certificate, and once you accumulate micro certificates, you'll have your qualification.
Yeah. The issues also around skills and placement. Are you in touch with employers in terms of telling them that we've got this batch of people who studied this? In terms of placing them, they can't just study. I mean, they need to be placed somewhere. Are you friends with some institutions and employers that you can place these people?
Yes, but also we're doing pure academic studies. We're doing competency-based education models, which develop their technical knowledge, their practical skills, their digital skills, their professional skills, their interpersonal skills or soft skills, and also the business acumen. So once they leave our micro badges and qualifications, they'll be able to go walk into a place and deliver based on what their skill sets are. So we don't have a program where you say go and study for 3 years, go and train for 3 years, and then you can become a professional. We're breaking down that barrier to ensure that we are making people who are ready for the market.
How much impact will this have on South Africa's economy?
It's going to change the perception of what education is, and because of that, it's going to contribute to the economy holistically, because everyone will be capacitated to be a participant in the economy.
Why is this process important? Just before I let you go.
It's important for us because if I look at the statistics and the number of unemployed graduates, which is running at 11.7% of our youth, and 40% of the youth is unemployed. And this will address unemployment, because in most cases the job market are now looking for skilled people rather than graduates with qualifications.
That was Professor Rashid Small speaking to Channel Africa's economics reporter Innocent Samosa. It's 7 o'clock Central African time. A very good morning to you. This is the second hour of Rise and Shine right here on Channel Africa, where we bring you the African perspective. We're streaming on the internet, www.channelafrica.co.za. And not forgetting, you can also catch us on your mobile apps. Just go into your mobile App Store and look for SABC Plus and then Channel Africa, which means you can take us wherever you may be going. My name is Peter Ndoro. Very good morning.
Good morning. My name is Asanda Beda. Thank you for staying with us. And in this hour, we take a look at the Democratic Republic of Congo's former president, Joseph Kabila, who is facing a military trial in absentia over alleged war crimes, and looking at famine that's now been officially confirmed in Gaza City. Those stories and more coming up. Firstly, though, let's say good morning to Onele Nzinzi with our news, and then Musibudi Makura will follow with sports headlines.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. The Democratic Republic of Congo's military auditor general, Lucien Likulia, has formally told a military court that he is seeking the death penalty for the former President Joseph Kabila, who is being tried in absentia for crimes including homicide, rape and torture. Kabila spent almost 2 decades in power before stepping down in 2018. He has been abroad since late 2023, mostly in South Africa. Kabila is wanted in Congo for alleged crimes against humanity, including a role in the massacre of civilians. In May, Congo's Senate voted to lift Kabila's immunity from prosecution. South Africa's African National Congress Party veteran and former government minister Naledi Pandor says the party must scrutinize all leaders that are placed in positions of power. Pandor says some ANC leaders have forgotten that they have been voted into these positions to serve the people of South Africa. The former government minister was speaking at a memorial lecture of former ANC stalwart Gertrude Shope, who would have turned 100 years old this month.
We have forgotten that we exist to serve the people, that we exist for the people. We need to bring that back by scrutinizing very carefully the leaders that we affirm, and by ensuring that if our leaders fail at their duty, whatever position they occupy, we will hold them to account.
Now, the National Defence Force has denied a Sunday newspaper report that the chief of the Southern African National Defence Force, General Rudzani Mapwanya, is defying Defence Minister Angie Motshekga. This comes amid concern about the comments made by the general in support of Iran on a recent trip to that country. Critics say the general should not be involving himself in international politics and that the military must be political. The SANDF says in a statement that the Mapwanya is consulting with the minister and the ombudsman. The SANDF spokesperson, Prince Shabalala, explains.
The SANDF assures the public and the stakeholders that due process is being followed. Any final determination will be made in strict compliance with the law and established military procedures and the directive of the executive authority.
The United Nations Children's Fund in Mozambique plans to extend its child grant program to the Niassa, Cabo Delgado and Nampula provinces. This will benefit an additional 7,000 families amid unemployment and instability. The grant offers monthly cash transfers to primary caregivers of young children aged between 0 and 2, along with social assistance, nutrition and case management to enhance their skills and children's well-being. And lastly, the U.S. President Donald Trump has threatened to send National Guard troops to yet another Democratic stronghold, the city of Baltimore. He says the aim of his mobilization of military personnel is to crack down on crime. The BBC's Paddy McGee.
The Maryland State Governor Wes Moore has criticised Mr Trump over his deployment of federal troops in Washington, D.C. and his plans to do the same in 2 other Democrat-controlled cities, Chicago and New York. He had earlier invited Mr Trump to join him on a safety walk in Baltimore to see for himself that such a move was not necessary. In June, Mr Trump sent 5,000 troops to Los Angeles in response to protests against immigration enforcement raids. The policy has drawn fierce criticism from Democrats.
For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I am Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, the Springbok women's side thrash Brazil in their opening match of the Women's Rugby World Cup. While there are no major surprises on the first day of the final Grand Slam tournament of the year, the US Open out in New York. I'll have details of these and other stories at 7:30.
Start your day informed, inspired, and entertained. Asanda and Peter bring you Rise and Shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time.
So let's get your views then on this particular issue as we ask our question of the day on Rise and Shine. So it's got this backdrop then. Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni has held talks with US Senator Marco Rubio, suggesting a possible warming of relations after years of tension between the two countries. The talks come hours after Uganda agreed to host some foreign nationals who had been denied asylum in the US. And the question we're asking is, what do you make of the bilateral relations between Uganda and America? To get in touch with us on our social media platforms, we are across all of them. At Channel Africa 1 is our handle. We'd love to hear your views on that.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
Right, it's now time for us to take a look at a landmark development in DRC political and security landscape. Former President Joseph Kabila has been put on trial in absentia for war crimes, including homicide, rape, torture, deportation, and organizing armed rebellion. A military court is demanding the death penalty alongside lengthy prison terms for conspiracy and abetting atrocities. His return earlier this year to Goma in the east of the country, territory held by the M23 rebels, preceded the lifting of his immunity and the suspension of his party. Now, this trial intensifies tensions amid an already fragile eastern region and a recently brokered peace deal with Rwanda. To help us unpack the implications, we're now joined by Congolese political scientist Didier Bayeye. Didier, thank you very much indeed for joining us and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Peter. Good morning to the listeners, and thank you for having me this morning.
So, I mean, this is quite big, a former president being put on trial in this way. How significant do you think this is in terms of the political evolution of the DRC at this time?
This is really big, like you have said it, because nobody would have expected a former president who has led the very same country for 18 years to be put on trial. But again, it as much as this is big, it is equally big for the country and sending a very strong message to any other leader or any other a political figure that would conspire with the enemy to betray the state, to betray the country. There's a lot of things which have been unfolding during this trial, and not just for the trial, Peter. Let's just say it's the main reason why the eastern part of Congo has been in so much trouble and disturbed for so many years. So, yeah, this way of dealing with things, I guess, would lead the DRC to a new era of peace, transformation, and progress.
So, some people might say that this is more political than actual accountability. What's your take? It probably means that there's a little bit of both here.
Yeah, there is a little bit of both. I would even say more political, because this is politics. It is politics, and we cannot undermine the fact that it is politics. And those who are saying this is more political, they are not wrong. But the approach or the reason behind that might just be different. But it is definitely political. Considering being a president of the country, this is a political position, and betraying a country, it has to do with politics. So we cannot deny that. But the bottom line here, or the question to ask, is that everything that's been said about the former president Joseph Kabila during this military court proceedings, I guess that is where the question should be. But saying that this is just political accusation, it's to seek political vendetta and so on. I don't think that is the right way of looking at this. The question is that true or not? Is he really implicated to the accusation brought forward against him or not? Do they have any evidence? What are those evidence? I guess then we will get more light about his accusation, about why he has to be taken to trial, even in absentia for this matter.
How much support does former President Kabila still enjoy in the DRC? And could a trial like this fuel tensions that could escalate?
No, not at all. Not at all, Peter. What do we see and we hear? It's very small portion of people. When I'm saying very, I'm talking a very limited number, very small number of people who are very close to him, is very close, either members of his political party or those of his family that tend sometimes to raise the and to support of the former president Joseph Kabila, but the population opposing itself against his sanction or arrestation, even arrest or even the death penalty that the military auditor general has asked the court to impose on former President Kabila. It's just a small portion of people. So it's I guess the population altogether has grown enough to understand the crime behind this, to understand how bad the situation. How come the very same person who has led the country, who's supposed to defend the country under the flag, under oath, is the very same person who's supporting the militias, groups to kill the population? We keep getting reports from the UN and different civil society organizations of mass killings, atrocities in the eastern part of Congo, mainly in the provinces or cities occupied by these terrorist rebels. And the biggest support they get is coming from the former president Joseph Kabila, not because people are suspecting him to be the person behind. Peter, we remember that even far before this case start, many people have been arrested, including those very close to the leader of the M23 movement, that were coming into the capital, Kinshasa, to spy out on the government in place. And not only that, also including some high official military who were still active in the army, also apprehended as part of the conspiracy to topple the current government. And in their secret or behind closed doors interrogation, they allegedly made as being the mastermind behind this and behind the support. In fact, he's also the biggest funder, putting funds available for the M23 to operate and function. And we can all agree that this is something very big and very serious that nobody would have expected a former president to act in this manner against the country he has ruled, far beyond the constitutional terms could give him to rule.
I mean, this all raises quite a number of questions, because if it is true that Rwanda is behind the M23, where does that place former President Kabila in terms of relationships with Kigali? Are they acting in concert, or are these two separate missions?
Yes, they are acting in concert, and they've been acting in concert for a long time, as long as former President Joseph Kabila was still in power. He was still in concert with Rwanda. During his submission, the military auditor general, General Likulia, court, he also touched the issue of identity theft by the former President Joseph Kabila, who did entire country by calling himself Kabila under the name of the former President Kabila. And he gave his real, apparently, allegedly, his real name. He's known with before he was president, born from both parents from Rwanda, referred to or known as Hippolyte Kanambe. This seems to be his real name. And he also mentioned the late Professor Ngoyi Mukena, who unfortunately passed on, who was selected, and he made a media appearance before he died on how he was approached by the Kabila clan and asked to make of Kabila a Congolese. Hence, he was given the name Kabila Kabange to be seen as Congolese.
We're running out of time, but I do want to ask you one last
a
question.
lot.
Will he get a fair trial, given all of this?
He was given the opportunity, to appear in person or be represented, or his legal representation. This thing didn't just start without him. Without him being notified, all the process were followed. So he was given the opportunity for fair trial. And what do we call fair trial, Peter? Is in such situation, he comes forward, or his lawyers come to present also his counter argument that whatever is presented against Kabila is not true. This is the situation, and put in their submission. Then it becomes fair, a fair trial. But when they decide to boycott or just not show up at all and without any explanation, this is also seen as sabotaging the institutions of the states, and which is another criminal offense. So the opportunity was given for a fair trial.
Didier, that's where we'll leave it. Thank you so much indeed for your insights on this particular development. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks a lot, Peter. Always a pleasure to be on your program. Have a good day.
That was Didier Bayeye, a Congolese political scientist, making sense of this trial in absentia of former President Joseph Kabila, who's standing trial for many issues, including war crimes, homicide, rape, torture, deportation, and organizing an armed rebellion. We'll keep on top of that story for you.
The KwaZulu-Natal Convention Bureau, in collaboration with Milvest Advisory and the city of Mhlathuze, brings you the 2025 Tourism Investment Forum, Africa. By positioning these regions for sustainable growth, TIFA helps drive their economic ambitions while providing access to critical capital, networks, and strategic insights on investments in the trade services sector, such as tourism. Join us for the TIFA 2025 from August 27 to 29 at Tembela Venue, Richards Bay, KZN, South Africa. Be part of the movement transforming tourism and infrastructure in Africa. Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
Famine has now been officially confirmed in Gaza City, and the latest UN-backed IPC report warns that the crisis could soon spread to other areas, including Deir al-Balah and Khan Yunis. According to the report, acute malnutrition has reached alarming levels, with more than 1 in 4 children in Gaza City now malnourished. Oxfam says the famine is being driven by Israel's near total blockade of food and humanitarian aid, leaving millions of civilians, especially mothers, children, and the elderly, on the brink of starvation. To help us understand what's happening on the ground, we're joined by Ghada Al-Haddad, Oxfam's Media and Communications Officer in Gaza. Ghada, thank you so much for making time for us this morning. How are you?
Thank you so much for hosting me. I'm okay, but not really. Yeah.
Can you give us a sense of what the latest IPC report reveals about the famine in Gaza and just how severe the situation is right now?
Yeah, as you just said, the IPC report has confirmed that famine is in Gaza City, and there are also warning that it would expand to other cities in Deir al-Balah and Khan Yunis. We have been warning that famine was imminent. We have been telling people all over the world that famine is imminent in different parts of the Gaza Strip. Despite our warning and despite all INGOs and humanitarian actors' warnings, Israel continued its campaign of relentless bombardment and airstrikes, and they have been starving the Palestinians again and again. Since the beginning of the war, we've seen how Israel has used starvation as a weapon of war. They blocked the entry of most aids into which deprive the Palestinians of their basic and fundamental human rights, which is food. And you can imagine, we've seen children starving to death. We've seen children dying out of starvation. And this is actually shocking that we are living in 2025 and we've seen a state like Israel is starving other civilian people and other children and mothers and so on. And it is also scary that despite all these warnings, Israel is still continuing its bombardment, its airstrikes and its artillery shells against the Palestinian, and it is also continuing the near total blockade of food and vital aid, and which lead to horrifying consequences on the ground. You can imagine that we at Oxfam have aids worth of $2.5 million of essential aids like food parcels, like water tanks, like hygiene kits, menstrual supplies, all of this. And it has been sitting in our warehouses in neighboring countries, and we cannot get it into here. And we've seen that people are in dire need of such aids, and they do not allow us to bring it here and to help the people who are in dire need of such things. So technically what we are seeing eventually, it is more deprivation of the Palestinians who have been starved, who have been living under constant bombardment all day and all night.
The report that also mentions that people are risking their lives just to find food and even being shot at near distribution centers. How widespread is this problem?
This is really shocking because Israel has starved the Palestinians, and then they created what is called Gaza distribution sites, they try to bypass the humanitarian system that has been led by UN agencies and other INGOs. But they have set a dangerous set up where they, they were like responsible for such distribution sites. Most of the people, we have also warned against this because this is also a breach of the humanitarian international law. You cannot let a party to the conflict lead or be responsible for aid distribution. Israel instead, according to the international humanitarian law, should be responsible or is obliged to facilitate the entry and the distribution of aids. But we've seen Israel is blocking the entry and blocking the distribution of aids among the people who are in dire need. And instead of the 400 distribution sites that were run by the UN agencies during the ceasefire, Israel replaced them with these distribution sites where people go there, travel for miles and miles to Rafah city at the southernmost of the Gaza Strip in order to get some food items. They are getting these food items at the gunpoint of Israeli soldiers. I have honestly heard many stories of people who have been shot while receiving the aids. You can imagine a humanitarian or claiming to be a humanitarian organization, but at the same time killing the Palestinians, and that's why it is not, humanitarian system. This is not a humanitarian system. We all know that a humanitarian system causes no harm to its beneficiaries, but we have seen how these distribution sites are killing the Palestinians again and again, and deliberately and intentionally. And people said when we go there, we have to crawl because they cannot walk, because if they walk or if they stand up, they're going to be shot by the Israeli soldiers there. A man told me, I know that the distribution sites is opened when the Israeli tanks stop shooting. So you can imagine. So the sign for the opening or the closure of these distribution sites is whether the Israeli tanks stop shelling or do not stop shelling. And we have seen how these distribution sites have been created on a militarized zone, and where in Rafah city, it is a no-go zone, and it has been wiped out, and most of the city buildings have been reduced to rubble, and then they created these distribution sites. People go there at gunshot. We have seen reports from the UN agencies where they reported that almost 1,000 people have been killed at the premises or the vicinity of these distribution sites. This is dangerous. This is shocking because, as I said, humanitarian system do not kill. This is not a humanitarian system. This is deliberately to kill the Palestinian, to displace them, to starve them.
As Oxfam, you've called for a ceasefire and a full lifting of the blockade. What is your message to world leaders and the international community?
Like my message for the world leader, we're done with mere statements. We're done with condemnation. We need actual things on the ground. We need a full permanent ceasefire. Honestly, this is everyone's hope and wish on the ground in Gaza. I mean, we've been living under this genocide for over 22 months. Most of the buildings in Gaza have been reduced to rubble. Most of the people in Gaza have been exhausted and tired. Most of the people in Gaza are homeless right now. They have lost their shelters. Children have lost their school years. They have lost their childhood. Most of the children thoughts right now, do we have food? Do we have water? Can I take shower? No, you can't take shower because there is no water. Can I go to school? There is no school because most of the schools have turned into rubble, or they have turned into shelters for those homeless people. Everyone's wish right now is a full and a permanent ceasefire. We are exhausted. Right now, I'm talking to you, and the Israeli drones are hovering over my head, and they are buzzing all day, all night. They have never left the skies. Right now, I'm talking to you. A couple of hours ago, there was a couple of airstrikes in the eastern parts of Deir al-Balah, and I have heard them. This has become a norm, and this is not the norm that I wanted to live in. We need peace. And what I wanted from the world leaders is to pressure Israel to stop its genocide on the Gaza Strip and to call for accountability for all those who created such chaos in Gaza. such chaos in Gaza, and to lift all the borders and to open all the corridors so that all the humanitarian supplies can be allowed into the Gaza Strip, and we can help the Palestinians. We can reconstruct our homes, we can reconstruct our schools, and have again a sense of normalcy that we are all desperate for.
Gaza, we're going to leave it there for now, for today. Thank you so much for your insights. And it paints a very grim picture, but we need to have this conversation. So we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Ghada Al-Haddad is Oxfam's Media and Communications Officer in Gaza, speaking to us about the worsening famine crisis as highlighted in the latest IPC report. It's 10:30 Central African time. Let's say good morning to Onel Nzinzi with news headlines.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. The Democratic Republic of Congo's military auditor general has formally told a military court that he is seeking the death penalty for the former President Joseph Kabila, who is being tried in absentia. South Africa's African National Congress Party veteran and former government minister Naledi Pandor says the party must scrutinize all leaders that are placed in position of power. And Iran's supreme leader has said the current situation with the U.S. is unsolvable and insists Iran will never bow to pressure to obey Washington. Channel Africa News, I am Oneli Mtsinsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Let's find out what's been happening in the world of sport as we say good morning once again to Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you so much, Peter. Good morning once again from the sports desk. Now, Swayze de Bruin, the head coach of the South African Springbok women's team, says they could not have asked for a much more impressive start to their Women's Rugby World Cup campaign than a record-breaking 66-6 victory over Brazil in Northampton on Sunday afternoon. So the victory in their opening match pushed the Bok women to the top of Group D after the first round of the tournament concluded at the Franklin Garden. Now, de Bruin was understandably happy after a 10-try romp handed the South African side their only try bonus point win in Pool D, as France meanwhile failed to score 4 tries in their 24-0 victory over Italy on Saturday.
It's early days. Italy will be a total different opponents. There was nice variation in our play between forwards and backs. We knew when to attack what space at the right time. But I'm still worried the first half about the breakdown. We lacked in numbers there. Everyone wanted to be the hero. So second half it was much better. But saying that, it's for us to score 10 tries at a world tournament and stop them from scoring 8 try, brilliant defence. So all in all, with the scrummings and the lineouts was efficient. So all in all, very happy.
On to football news now. Sudan advanced to the semi-finals of the Total Energies African Nations Championship 2024 tournament. This after edging Algeria 4-2 on penalties in Zanzibar, setting up a last 4 meeting with Madagascar. So the Falcons of Jeddah held their nerve in a dramatic shootout at the Amman Stadium. This after a 1-1 draw across 120 minutes, with goalkeeper Mohamed Abuja the only hero after saving 2 penalties. Now Kwesi Appiah's side, who topped Group D, remain unbeaten in the tournament and then continue now to build on their remarkable resurgence. Meanwhile, Senegal coach Souleymane Diallo held his players for adhering to his strategic demands as they beat co-host Uganda 1-0 on Saturday. This to also reach the 2024 CHAN semi-finals. The defending champions found themselves under enormous pressure for large spells in their semi-final, or rather in this semi-final, in this quarter-final match at the Mandela National Stadium in Kampala, but they were absolutely resolute in defence as Marc Arona Diop made 5 saves. So Senegal will face off with 2-time champions Morocco in the semi-finals for a place in the final, of this CHAN tournament. In some tennis news now, Novak Djokovic delivered a lesson in Grand Slam tenacity to Leonard Tien in the first round of the US Open as he battled past the American teenager 6-1, 7-6 and 6-2 and launched his latest quest for a record 25th major title. So competing in his first singles match since reaching the Wimbledon semi-finals just last month, the swapping the whites for the sleek all-black outfit, the 38-year-old Serbian fought through physical issues on Sunday to secure his 80th win at the Arthur Ashe Stadium.
Great to be back again in New York. It was quite a strange match, to be honest. I think the first set was just over 20 minutes. The second set was an hour and 20 minutes. So quite an opposite sets that we played in, the first couple of sets. And, I think it was key for me to really hold my nerves in the second set and then really clinch the second set in the tiebreak. After that, I started feeling a little bit better, and I ended up a match in a good fashion. So all in all, there are positives to take. I know I can always do better, but
Meanwhile, the world number one Aryna Sabalenka overcame a shaky start to see off Swiss opponent Rebecca Marasova 7-6 and 6-1. Sabalenka is now aiming to become the first woman since Serena Williams in 2014 to successfully defend the singles title in New York. She has reached at least the last four in each of the three Grand Slams so far this season, losing in the finals of both the French as well as the Australian Open. The Belarusian will face off with Polina Kurimatova next, the Russian advancing after her opponent Nuria Perez Diaz of Spain retired with an injury. Elsewhere, former Wimbledon champion Marketa Vondrousova defeated Russia's Oksana Salimetova 6-3, 7-6 to set up a second round match against American McCartney Kessler, while Yelena Ostapenko will face either Taylor Townsend or Antonia Risk in the next round after the Latvian defeated China's Wang Zhengyu 6-4 and 6-3. And finally, Tommy Fleetwood held his nerve to win the Tour Championship and finally claim a first PGA Tour title at the 164th time of asking. Emotion poured out of the 34-year-old Englishman after he holed the winning putt on the 18th green. His European Ryder Cup teammate as well as friend Justin Rose was greenside to film the final putt as well as celebrations on his phone as Fleetwood wrapped up a 3-shot victory on 18 under par to secure the FedEx Cup as well as a $10 million first prize money. It is the 8th career title for Fleetwood, whose previous 7 came on the European-based DP World Tour, and also means he's now shaken off the unwanted tag of being the nearly man of the American circuit. So 2 times previously this season he had either led or jointly led after 3 rounds without completing the victory. He also had up to 30 top 5 finishes over his career, 6 this year, which was also the most of anyone without a win. With that, it's a wrap of the sports news this hour. I'm back with the final sports update on Africa Rise and Shine in the third and final hour of the show. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, simply send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Give us a call on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibu D. Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Ukatili wa kijinsia unaharibu maisha na kutenga jamii. Hutokea nyumbani, shuleni, kazini na mara nyingi kwa ukimya. Lakini hauwezi kuendelea. Ukiona, ongea. Ikiwa unaumia, funguka, kwa sababu kutofanya lolote sio chaguo. Sikiliza vituo vyote 19 vya redio kuanzia Jumatano ya tarehe 23 Julai kwenye mijadala, ushauri, tamthilia, maonyesho ya elimu na mahojiano na wataalamu, manusura, watunga sheria na nchi nzima iliyoathirika na ukatili wa kijinsia kwenye vituo vyako pendwa vya redio. Piga simu 0800 428 ili kuripoti unyanyasaji au kupata msaada. GBV ikomeshwe na wewe. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwenu na shirika la SABC.
Download the SABC app and take Channel Africa with you everywhere you go.
It's just a little shy of 7:40 Central African time. Let's say good morning to Buntle Headbush. She has our business news.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Asanda, and a very good morning to our listeners. In our top business story at this hour, Nigerian energy company LNG Limited says it signed a 20-year gas supply contract with NNPC Limited and other oil firms for the supply of 1.29 billion standard cubic feet per day. The company says these will support its liquefaction plants and expansion plans. The agreements, which include extension options, also involve firms such as Shell Nigeria and the Owando Group and are expected to mitigate long-standing upstream gas shortfalls while propelling Nigeria's energy transition and industrialization efforts. Libya's state-run National Oil Corporation says it will soon host a Libyan-US Energy Forum. The forum is aimed at boosting partnerships and investments in the North African country's oil and natural gas sectors. Libya is one of Africa's biggest oil producers, but its oil output has been disrupted repeatedly in the chaotic decade since 2014. The company says the Energy Forum will be held with U.S. company Freedom First and will be attended by representatives from leading U.S. energy firms along with Libyan investors and officials. South African power utility Eskom has reached a milestone of 100 consecutive days without load shedding. The company has attributed this to its generation recovery plan introduced in March last year and the hard work of its teams in stabilizing the grid. So far this financial year, Eskom has logged just 26 hours of load shedding and 144 days of reliable power supply. Spokesperson Daphne Mukwena says this is a significant breakthrough, building on 2024's progress when South Africans enjoyed 352 load-shedding-free days.
The resilience of our generation fleet continues to improve with unplanned losses due to breakdowns now at 6,035 megawatts, well below the 7,000 megawatts threshold. The last time Eskom recorded unplanned losses below this level was on 27 of September 2020, when the figure stood at 6,829 megawatts. These operational gains are not just milestones, they are stepping stones towards larger goal, ending load shedding for good.
South African security strategist and retired Interpol ambassador Andy Mashaile says human trafficking syndicates are using people's desperation for jobs by luring them into all sorts of illegal activities. This after suspicious employment opportunities were advertised by social media influencers on TikTok, Instagram and other social media platforms targeting women between the ages of 18 and 22. The Department of International Relations and Cooperation warned South African women not to fall for unverified foreign job offers. Mashaile has urged young people not to be impressed with social media influencers displaying flashy lifestyles without concrete background.
Young ladies and young gentlemen, we have a responsibility to talk to them now. Those who are listening who are going to school, wait for the right time, and the right time is when you are not in a hurry to be rich overnight. Verify if you see this advert on social media. As long as you cannot call that place, don't submit your application. Verify with the South African embassy in that country.
Oil prices have edged higher today after Ukraine stepped up attacks on Russia. The attacks have fanned concerns that Russian oil supply could be disrupted, while expectations of a cut in the U.S. interest rates have buoyed the outlook for global growth and fuel demand. Brent futures rose 3 cents to $67.76 this morning, and Brent has climbed slightly higher to $67.84 a barrel in the last hour. Now taking a look at the indicators, $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,533 naira. In Botswana, it's 13 pula 33. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 15, and in Zambia, it's 23 kwacha 10. Moving to the BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 42. Russia, 80 rubles 36. India, it's 87 rupees 34. China, 7 yuan 16. And South Africa, $1 is trading at 17 rand 42 cents this morning. $1 is trading at 73 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,365 per ounce, platinum at $1,349 per ounce, and as mentioned earlier, the price of Brent crude oil is at $67.84 a barrel. And those are your business news at this hour. I'll be back with more in the next hour. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459 for Channel Africa Business. I am Bontle Headbush.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. The KwaZulu-Natal Convention Bureau, in collaboration with Milvest Advisory and the city of Mhlathuze, brings you the 2025 Tourism Investment Forum, Africa. By positioning these regions for sustainable growth, TIFA helps drive their economic ambitions while providing access to critical capital, networks, and strategic insights on investments in the trade services sector, such as tourism. Join us for the TIFA 2025 from August 27 to 29 at Tembela Venue, Richards Bay, KZN, South Africa. Be part of the movement transforming tourism and infrastructure in Africa. Wake up to the essence of the continent. Rise and shine on Channel Africa.
An alarming food crisis is unfolding in Cameroon, where nearly 500,000 people, including refugees and vulnerable households, face losing life-saving assistance in the coming weeks. WFP has already reduced rations and halted support in some camps, with school meals and nutrition programs hanging in the balance. Now, without urgent funding, progress in education, health and community stability is at serious risk. Well, today we're joined by Gianluca Ferreira, who's the WFP representative and country director in Cameroon, to help us understand the breadth of the crisis and what needs to be done. Gianluca, thank you very much for joining us, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, and thanks for inviting me.
So 500,000 people risk losing food aid. Can you take us through the situation in the refugee camps, the displaced areas? What are you seeing on the ground, and what are people experiencing at the moment?
Yes, thank you very much, as I said, for the invite and for allowing me to highlight the situation in Cameroon. Cameroon is one of the most neglected crises in the world nowadays. A recent report by Norwegian Refugee Council highlighted the fact that Cameroon is the most neglected crisis at the moment in the world because of lack of funding, but also because of lack of media attention. So that is why it's so important for me this morning to be talking to you about the situation in Cameroon. 500,000 people, including refugees from Nigeria and Central African Republic and internally displaced people in Cameroon, are on the verge of losing their food and nutrition assistance in the coming weeks due to severe funding shortfall that WFP is currently facing. Those are the people that WFP has been assisting since January this year. We have already started implementing ration cuts, reducing by up to 50% the amount of food provided to the families. The number of people receiving assistance has already been reduced. For instance, in Minawo camp in the far north of Cameroon, near the border with Nigeria and Chad, WFP has been forced to stop assisting about 26,000 Nigerian refugees. The camp hosts almost 55,000 refugees, and 26,000 out of this population cannot receive assistance anymore due to the funding cuts. In Gado camp in the east, where WFP has been assisting Central African refugees living in Cameroon, also WFP was forced to reduce rations, and if no additional funding is secure, as we were saying earlier, WFP will significantly scale back operations, and this is at risk of worsening severely hunger among thousands of families.
So, how are families in these refugee camps surviving on half the rations? What? I mean, it just sounds so dire now. How are they coping?
They are adopting all what we call the worst coping strategies. Of course, they are reverting to not sending kids to school, reverting not to spend any more money on health and other expenditures. So prioritizing the little resources they have for food, renouncing to other very important needs. People may start to be on the move and start to migrate, looking for places where they can hopefully receive better assistance or find way to improve their livelihoods. Those camps, those displaced population are living in very unsecure environments. So the risk of armed groups and other factions offering a livelihood opportunity to those population is also a risk that we see. We have been seeing increased number of security incidents in the far north of Cameroon over the last month. So there is that the lack of assistance offer opportunities for households and for those groups to offer livelihood opportunity to those people is really big.
I think you've given us one clue in terms of the consequences of this, and that's education being affected for children. Talk to us about health, because not getting enough nutrition must have consequences.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, those regions experiencing severe food insecurity are also experiencing bad malnutrition rates. And so food insecurity and malnutrition goes hand in hand. And with the reduction of aid, reduction of efforts by the international actors to provide support, the risk of seeing increased malnutrition rates is huge. WFP and the Ministry of Health have a network of partners who monitor the situations through the health centers. So we do try to have an understanding on how the situation evolves. But indeed, not having enough supplies to respond to the needs may pose those children at risk in the weeks and months to come.
What's your call to the international community? Because this really is about a funding shortfall, isn't it?
It is. We are indeed, as I was saying earlier, Cameroon is one of the most neglected crises in the world at the moment. We are facing a world of multi-crises, so not all of them get the attention and the resources from the international community they should. So we are really calling on all the donor countries, the member states of the United Nations, to step up and support. We are also appealing to the government of Cameroon to, in the short term, to provide also resources and capacity to cope with the situation. We have very good relationship with the government. The government is aware of the reduction in the support that the international community used to provide, and is trying to adjust its budget and to provide resources to support. So in this transition where we we see governments, host government coming and taking more and more responsibilities while we see international community withdrawing. We need to keep the public opinion informed and keep them aware of the risk that vulnerable population face in these transition times.
If funding doesn't come through in the next few months, what could we see happening more and more?
Well, we could see a reverse of the development and resilience building gains we have been building over the years. Those are regions exposed, as I was saying earlier, to multiple shocks, security being the most important one, but also natural disasters, chronic poverty. So those populations do require special attention. Those regions do require special attention. And if we reduce assistance, if we reduce critical funding for key aspects of the human life, health, education, life-saving assistance, then we see risk of, as I was saying, people saying food insecurity going up, malnutrition going up, migration happening, insecurity further increasing, people resorting to the worst coping strategies. So we are really going backward instead of going forward. And this is definitely not what we want to see in those fragile regions of Cameroon.
You have operations all over the world. Are you seeing a general situation where funding is getting less and less to help people like those in Cameroon, or is it some regions more than others? What are you seeing?
Yes, we see, unfortunately, a global reduction of international assistance to WFP and to other humanitarian partners. So it is not just WFP, but it's the broad range of humanitarian actors, UN agencies, international and national NGOs. So the humanitarian actors are affected by the reduction of humanitarian aid. Certain crises more than others. As I said, it is not an equal reduction. Some countries see this reduction more pronounced. But we really see a new deal in the world where indeed there is maybe a different repartition of charges between donor states, a more role, more importance, more resources allocated by those countries. But we really need to rethink the way we provide international assistance, because shocks will continue to happen, unfortunately. We have 57 active conflicts in the world nowadays. We have natural disasters, so capacities to respond and to provide assistance is essential, and we need to rethink it nowadays.
Gianluca, thank you so much indeed for making this situation more aware for our listeners and viewers, so that perhaps some action can be taken to assist with funding. But thank you so much indeed. It's such an important story.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
All right, that's Gianluca Ferreira, who's the World Food Programme's representative and country director in Cameroon, helping us unpack a sad story there. Nearly 500,000 people, including refugees and vulnerable households, losing life-saving assistance in the coming weeks. And they've got a $65 million funding shortfall. And if this doesn't happen, well, we're going to start to see some very serious consequences.
Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa.
It's 8 o'clock Central African time, which means it's time for the last hour of Rise and Shine this morning. Thanks very much indeed for tuning in. This is us broadcasting live from our studios in Johannesburg, South Africa. And just a reminder, you can also get us on your mobile apps. Just go into your app store and look for SABC Plus. That's SABC Plus, and then look for Channel Africa. And you can take us wherever you want. Streaming on the internet, www.channelafrica.co.za. That's our normal home. I'm Peter Ndoro.
My name is Asanda Beda. Thank you so much, and a very good morning as we start on this Monday, a new week. In this hour, we are going to be looking at South Africa's Department of International Relations and Cooperation issuing a warning to young women to not fall prey to unverified foreign job offers, as this is a syndicate that's come up in terms of human trafficking, using people's desperation for jobs to get them into all sorts of types of illegal activities. Not so long ago, we touched on a story from Kenya where there was a BBC expose on a similar issue. So we'll be in conversation on that one. And of course, more stories will be coming up. Let's get our news first. Here's Onele Nsinsi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. The Democratic Republic of Congo's military auditor general, General Lucien Lekulia, has formally told a military court that he is seeking the death penalty for the former President Joseph Kabila, who is being tried in absentia for war crimes, including homicide, rape and torture. Kabila spent almost 2 decades in power before stepping down in 2018. He has been abroad since late 2023. In May, Congo's Senate voted to lift Kabila's immunity from prosecution. Analyst specializing Great Lakes region, Didier Bayeye, explains.
He was given the opportunity to appear in person or be represented, or his legal representation. This thing didn't just start without him being notified. All the process were followed. So he was given the opportunity for fair trial. But when they decide to boycott or just not show up at all and without any explanation, this is also seen as sabotaging the institutions of the states, and which is another criminal offense. So the opportunity was given for a fair trial.
South Africa's African National Congress Party veteran and former government minister Naledi Pandor says the party must scrutinize all leaders that are placed in positions of power. Pandor says some ANC leaders have forgotten that they have been voted into these positions to serve the people of South Africa. The former government minister was speaking at the memorial lecture of the former ANC stalwart Gertrude Shope, who would have turned 100 years old this month.
We have forgotten that we exist to serve the people, that we exist for the people. We need to bring that back by scrutinizing very carefully the leaders that we affirm, and by ensuring that if our leaders fail at their duty, whatever position they occupy, we will hold them to account.
The National Defence Force has denied a Sunday newspaper report that Chief of the South African National Defence Force General Rodzani Mapwanya is defying Defence Minister Angie Motshekga. This comes amid concern about the comments made by the general in support of Iran on a recent trip to that country. Critics say the general should not be involving himself in international politics and that the military must apologize. The SANDF says in a statement that Mapwanya is consulting with the minister and ombudsman. SANDF spokesperson Prince Shabalala.
The SANDF assures the public and the stakeholders that due process is being followed. Any final determination will be made in strict compliance with the law and established military procedures and the directive of the executive authority.
Iran's supreme leader has said the current situation with the U.S. is unsolvable and insists Iran will never bow to pressure to obey Washington. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei his comments come amid a standoff with Western powers over Iran's nuclear program. The BBC's Mike Thompson.
Iran suspended negotiations with the United States after the US and Israel bombed its nuclear sites in June. Washington and other Western powers believe that Tehran is planning to develop nuclear weapons. They've insisted that the country stop all enrichment of uranium. France, Britain and Germany have warned that they could reactivate UN sanctions against Tehran if it fails to return to the negotiating table. Ministers from the four countries are to meet next week.
Lastly, Vietnam has shut down airports, closed schools and initiated mass evacuations as it prepares for the most powerful storm so far this year. Typhoon Kajiki has skidded past the Chinese island of Hainan, where more than 30,000 people in volatile areas were moved to safety. Kajiki is bringing winds of up to 160 kilometers an hour, whipping off waves at nearly 10 meters. Channel Africa News, I am Onele Mtsinsi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, the Springbok shock as Asanda Ntlabakanye tests positive for a non-performance enhancing substance, and Novak Djokovic wins his opening match at the US Open. Details of these and other stories coming up at the bottom of the hour.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
South Africa's Department of International Relations and Cooperation is warning young women not to fall for unverified foreign job offers. Retired Interpol ambassador Andy Mashaile says human trafficking syndicates are using people's desperation for jobs to lure them to all sorts of illegal activities. This after social media influencers advertised suspicious employment opportunities on platforms such as TikTok and Instagram, targeting women between the ages of 18 and 22. The phenomenon is not isolated to South Africa. In Kenya, 2 years ago, the Directorate of Criminal Investigations issued a warrant of arrest for a man called Wycliffe Onguti Magara. Magara was identified as the head of a local human trafficking network that recruits East Africans online with the promise of job opportunities in Southeast Asian countries. Now, security strategist and retired Interpol ambassador Andy Mashaile joins us to discuss this further. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Mashaile. How are you this morning?
Hey, Asanda, it's a bright and lovely morning.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. It is indeed. But this topic, not making it so bright, is painting a grim picture in terms of what we're seeing playing out. Let's start first with what specific tactics that these human traffickers are using on social media platforms like TikTok and Instagram to lure young, educated South African women with unverified foreign job offers.
Asanda, let's start off here and generate a scary statistics. The Human Science Research Council reported that in 2023, only 250,000 South Africans were trafficked, and 155,000 South Africans are living in modern-day slavery. Giving context and background to your beautiful question. The advent of artificial intelligence as well as TikTok influencers create fertile grounds for South Africans to be hunted, which is one of the ways in which they do it. The other method of operandi that these organized crime syndicates use would be to send out smishing tactics or smishing attacks, SMSs over to the rest of the world, particularly South Africa, because of the impunity that is seen to be protecting the organized crime syndicate. Back to the story of TikTok and influencers. Once again, I said artificial intelligence is used in a way and manner that creates pain for young South Africans who are tech savvy, who can speak English, who are tech savvy, who are highly educated, who are looking for job opportunities to escape the poverty of unemployment in South Africa. And when conditions of this nature exist, organized crime, international organized crime syndicates would harvest without remorse and would leave South Africans, women in particular, being forced into sexual exploitation, being tortured, being coerced, being exposed to gender based violence in these countries where they have been trafficked to or lured into modern day slavery.
We've seen influencers accused of promoting dubious jobs. In your expert view, how dangerous is it when social media stars become recruitment pipelines for traffickers?
It says to me, all influencers in the world, and in particular in my home country, South Africa, do not chase money. Verify the conditions, verify your mandate, because if your mandate, if your influence is used in the commission of a crime, you are an accomplice to crime and must be charged. Obviously, through our Interpol office in Pretoria, linking with those countries. So you can see here, Asanda, that influencers were just chasing money. They were given contract, didn't even know that these were lies or these companies were fictitious. If they would have known, they would know that they are committing crime and would be subject to punishment. Am I calling for these influencers to be punished? Yes. In the loudest voice from where I am standing. When you are involved in things of this nature, it is your responsibility to know that your voice and your face is not going to be used to commit crime. Now, having it being employed by these organized international syndicates suggests something to me, that people all over the world, social influencers, are only looking at the riches at the expense of Africans in this particular instance, and women, as we are wrapping up Women's Month in South Africa, become also the ground upon which they help satanic people with satanic minds to harvest women and create pain and torture and undermine their human rights.
What does it say then in terms of the scope of this problem and the tactics that these traffickers are using? And you've warned as Interpol that these trafficking fuel scams, they operate globally. How widespread is the problem? I know we cite the example of Kenya.
Very widespread. There was one of your sisters, my sisters, who had a relationship with a brother from another country. That woman was kidnapped from Cape Town. That woman woke up in another country, chained to a bed. This woman was a qualified medical doctor, and this country in question is Nigeria. That woman could only escape after helping the lady, the housekeeper in that filthy place. When that helper was sick, and this medical doctor assisted that old lady, and that old lady secured a boat to help that particular lady to be fetched from a river next to that area where they were kept, and she rushed to an embassy. As I read that report, rushed to our embassy, and she was able to be brought back to South Africa. It's very widespread. in the Central Americas, in the Caribbean community, Saudi Arabia, in that area, in those areas, our sisters from the neighboring countries are being taken for a ride. In that area, also India being part and parcel of a 5 years ago a huge market for people who are trafficked for sexual purposes and many others working in the farms. Yeah, the list is endless.
Mm. With the example of Kenya again, the government, they increased their efforts to protect Kenyan trafficking victims last year, according to a U.S. trafficking in persons report. Does South Africa have a similar move? Have they taken similar moves? And can the country meet the minimum requirements for the elimination of trafficking as you see it?
Yes, ma'am. The challenge is with implementation. The challenge is under investment in that area. The challenge is not really popularizing the stance against human trafficking. I think when government inserts articles or adverts in our soapies that speak to anti-human trafficking, it will sensitize South Africans. It will also show that government needs the help of South Africans to combat this scourge of human trafficking. South Africans are soapy junkies, and we can use that platform effectively in the fight against human trafficking. For the want of a better word, women trafficking, because this is Women's Month, and we need to focus a serious amount of energy because your men to ratio women to men ratio is 3-1 in South Africa. So a lot of my sisters, my cousins, my aunties in South Africa gets trafficked as a result of the less intense focus of the country on human trafficking. I think media can help us do better. I think the SABC Foundation can sponsor all those foundations as well as government with airtime to be inserted in the soapies that our people so lovingly watch.
So we speak of the modus operandi of social media and social media influencers, but on another hand, what is being done in South Africa to identify and remove fraudulent labor recruitment companies and agencies that could further exacerbate the issue of this crime of trafficking?
South African government through its law enforcement agencies are doing as much as they can. Let me tell you that there was a recruitment agency somewhere in one of the condemned buildings in Johannesburg. People were advised to go and submit their CVs in a shady, dark alley condemned building. South African law enforcement agencies and the NPAs of the world, or the Criminal Justice Cluster, got hold of that information and rushed in on that area. Upon arrival, the police were only met with with an empty building that was used for that evil purpose, and within a short space of time closed down, moved to another area. So it's a little bit of a challenge for police to can be able to close this completely down. I am sure, not speaking for the police by the way, I am certain that with communities working hand in glove with the media, with many of these foundations, they will be able to assist the South African law enforcement agencies in tackling this serious crime. Also, help government ensure that there is serious investment in this space when Asanda Tagama.
Yeah. In terms of awareness, then, especially in the rural areas where we know poverty exists, is that happening in the country in education drives?
Asanda, that is a serious problem in that area. Remember, all these initiatives that I've just belted out can enjoy the benefit of your urban areas, excluding your rural areas because of the concentration of um, digital devices and people focusing in on your digital space. When you look at the availability of digital devices that can be used to help our people in the rural areas, the ratio is 5 to 1 in terms of 5 cell phones to an for the purposes amongst others of spreading messages in the tablets that the government has issued out for learners so that they can be used as tools that combat crime, that creates awareness, and that fertilizes the intention to keep our communities safe and secure.
Is there an online platform or portal that people can go to verify if they suspect that a job could be fraudulent that's being advertised on the social media space?
Let me answer your question by flipping it and say individuals, when they have their gadgets on their hands or in their hands, as I'm holding mine, have a responsibility to know that if there is an advert that I want to apply to for a job, I must first verify with the embassy of that country in South Africa. If it is South Korea, people would need to verify with the embassy, which is in Pretoria. You can find that information of embassies on your search engines. Your search engines would be your Googles of the world, your DuckDuckGos, your Yahoos of the world, to check if the embassy here knows about that organization or that recruitment agency in Nigeria, in South Korea, in China, in Russia, so that you don't just send your details and you don't receive an airline ticket and some fares to get into an Uber to go to the airport, whilst you don't know whether that company or organization exists. Simply put, Asanda, it is the responsibility of an individual for a zero trust operation. Don't trust anything that you see online without having it verified. Don't spread birthday parties for 60 years of this shopping chain or that shopping chain, and therefore sending your application or details to win 5,000. There is not a possibility of a shopping chain giving out 5,000 rands for people just for free. So that should be red flags. It should be a red flag for you when you see this TikTok advert without you having it verified whether this thing exists for real or not.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. We really appreciate your time. A very important topic, especially as you said, with Women's Month, we need to zoom into these types of things and crimes that are happening. So we appreciate your insight and you making time for us.
Please pass my regards to all at home, Asanda, and to your production team. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and we appreciate it. Security strategist and retired Interpol ambassador Andy Mashaile shedding light on a syndicate that's doing the rounds on social media in terms of human trafficking and using people's desperation for jobs to lure young women. We're given the ages of between 18 and 22 in terms of those adverts into getting into illegal activities.
Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
So let's go to South Africa now, where the largest political party, the African National Congress, the ANC's veteran and South Africa's former government minister, Dr. Naledi.
The ANC Women's League commemorated the late struggle stalwart in Acacia, Pretoria. Meshope, a recipient of the Order of Isitalandwe, would have turned 100 this month. ANC veteran Dr. Naledi Pandor described Meshope as a leading force in the women's movement.
She had a look which stressed, I can cope with whatever is sent my way. That is the kind of strength that is urgently necessary today.
The former government minister also used the memorial lecture to warn the ANC, saying the party has lost its glory. Pandor says public officials have forgotten that they exist to serve the people.
And we have lost our glory. Let's not pretend about it. We have lost it. The people are looking at us with disdain. The people are looking at us with horror and shame. So we have work to do to restore the glory.
Dr. Pandor has also stressed the need for the ANC to scrutinize all leaders it has placed in positions of power.
We have forgotten that we exist to serve the people, that we exist for the people. We need to bring that back by scrutinizing very carefully the leaders that we affirm, and by ensuring that if our leaders fail at their duty, whatever position they occupy, we will hold them to account.
This while ANC Deputy Secretary General Nomvula Mokonyana emphasized the need for more women to occupy strategic positions. She says it's high time the women in the party should lead metropolitan municipalities, not only as speakers but as mayors, to honor Meshope.
To make women to be honest like Meshope, in defending and speaking truth to power within the ANC. And to also decide that you can lead the ANC yourselves. And to also decide that we shall have mayors and not speakers only in the local government elections. To commit that metropolitan municipalities are not the domain of men, le rona re batho.
Meshope, who passed away in May this year, would have turned 100 years on the 15th of August. I am Sibahle Mota in Pretoria.
From Cape to Cairo, Dakar to Dar es Salaam, rise and shine with Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda on Channel Africa.
It's a little bit before 1:30, and I'm going to take you back in history now to this day in 1967, and a famous battle during the liberation struggles for southern African countries, the Battle of Wankie, which began on the 25th of August and lasted until the 2nd of September. And this was a joint force between the ANC's Umkhonto weSizwe and Zimbabwe's ZAPU ZIPRA, and they clashed with Rhodesian security forces in what became one of the largest guerrilla campaigns of the era, marking a significant stage in southern African liberation struggle. So, significant moment in history there. The ANC's Umkhonto weSizwe and one of Zimbabwe's liberation movements, ZAPU, their armed wing was called ZIPRA, on a joint force against Rhodesian security forces in 1967. It's 8:30, which means it's time for your news headlines. Here's Onele Nsinzi.
SABC News headlines. The African perspective.
Thank you, Peter. The Democratic Republic of Congo former President Joseph Kabila is facing a military trial in absentia over alleged war crimes, with the military seeking the death penalty. South Africa's African National Congress Party veteran Naledi Pandor is hopeful that the foundations which pulled out of the National Convention this month will find their way back. The comments come as the Thabo Mbeki and Steve Biko foundations, amongst others, pulled out of the National Dialogue's preparatory task team. And the U.S. National Guard troops patrolling Washington, D.C. as part of what President Donald Trump says is a crackdown on crime and illegal migrants have begun carrying firearms. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Tsinsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Let's now check in with the world of sports as we get another full bulletin with Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you so much, Asanda, for the final time this morning on the Africa Rise and Shine show. We'll start here. So, a fan favorite Springbok prop Asanda Ndoro maintains in innocence. This after a random test for a banned substance returned a positive test. Now, a Springbok press release statement on Sunday confirmed that the two-test tight-head prop had provided an adverse analytical finding during testing by the South African Institute for Drug-Free Sport. And Ndoro disputes that Ndabaganye disputes that he has committed the anti-doping violation, and according to the statement, the non-performance enhancing substance for which he tested positive for was prescribed by a specialist physician early in 2025 for medical reasons, and also taken with the approval and the supervision of a medical doctor specifically appointed to manage the medical affairs of professional rugby players. Now, the rookie tight head prop made his test debut off the bench in a 45-0 win against Italy at the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium in July of this year, and as a result has not been included in the South African team that is set to depart for New Zealand for the upcoming Rugby Championship third round fixtures. We'll stay with rugby news. Swayze de Bruin, the head coach of the South African Springbok women's team, says they could not have asked for a much more impressive start to their Women's Rugby World Cup campaign than a record-breaking 66-6 victory over Brazil in Northampton on Sunday. So the victory in their opening match pushed the Bok women's side to the top of Pool D. This after the first round of the tournament concluded at Franklin Garden just this past weekend. So De Bruin was understandably happy with the 10-try romp that handed the South African side the only try bonus point win in Pool D. This as France failed to score 4 tries in their 24-0 victory over Italy on Saturday.
It's early days. Italy will be total different opponents. There was nice variation in our play between forwards and backs. We knew when to attack what space at the right time. But I'm still worried the first half about the breakdown. We lacked in numbers there. Everyone wanted to be the hero. So second half it was much better. But saying that, it's for us to score 10 tries at a world tournament and stop them from scoring 8 try, brilliant defence. So all in all, with the scrummings and the lineouts was efficient. So all in all, very happy.
On to cricket news now. South Africa's Proteas captain Themba Bavuma has admitted that his team was outplayed by the Australians in the third and final one-day international as they went down by a massive 276 runs. Now, Bavuma noted that the host had a good batting display and put together key partnerships at the Great Barrier Reef Arena, and that his team had just no answers on the day. He says they will sit down and look at exactly what went wrong to try and rectify those mistakes.
We were put under pressure from the first over. We just didn't recover. Obviously, as a bowling unit and a team, I think the guys batted obviously very well up front. Like I said, put us under pressure, and they were able to stretch their partnership. So, yeah, we probably just didn't pitch up today for whatever reasons. We'll still have those chats, those debriefs. It wasn't our best display of cricket today.
Now, the Proteas did win the series 2-1 this after claiming the first two games, and Bavuma was happy for especially the younger members of the team. Now, this was the fifth consecutive ODI series victory against the team ranked 3 places above South Africa on the world rankings.
Well, winning a series is number one. It's never easy coming to Australia, whatever team that the guys put out, especially for the younger dudes as well, to keep building on that belief, that we can win away from home. So I think that's a big thing. And then just in terms of what we're trying to, build and achieve as a team, keep building on that winning habit that we want to be known for, and whatever format it is, being Test cricket, being it ODI cricket, even T20 as well, flow it around through all the other formats. So.
And finally, Novak Djokovic delivered a lesson in Grand Slam tenacity to Leonard Tien in the first round of the US Open as he battled past the American teenager 6-1, 7-6 and 6-2 and launched his latest quest for a record-equaling 25th major title, competing in his first singles match since reaching the Wimbledon semi-finals just last month. The swapping of the whites for the sleek all-black outfit, the 38-year-old Serbian fought through physical issues on Sunday to secure his 80th win at the Arthur Ashe Stadium.
Great to be back again in New York. It was quite a strange match, to be honest. I think the first set was just over 20 minutes. The second set was an hour and 20 minutes. So quite an opposite sets that we played in the first couple of sets. And I think it was key for me to really hold my nerves in the second set and really clinch the second set in the tiebreak. After that, I started feeling a little bit better, and I ended up a match in a good fashion. So all in all, there are positives to take. I know I can always do better, but...
Right, so that's a wrap from the sports desk at this hour. I'm back with more sports news with the On The Move team in the next hour. As always, for any sports stories you'd like to share with us, simply send us an email to newsroom. That's at channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call. The newsroom line is +27 11714 4459. Channel Africa Sport. I am...
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Annie Kalonji sur Channel Africa.
Nous allons à présent dérouler notre tapis rouge pour accueillir notre personnalité du jour, l'artiste chanteur Sheky Frey, qui est en ligne de Guinée avec nous.
Je suis un artiste guinéen, un créateur, un styliste, et je fais un peu ce qui plaît à mes fans. Voilà, c'est un peu ça. On a beaucoup de genres de trucs à faire, mais bon, pour le moment, on est basé un peu sur le rap.
D'accord. À quelle période de votre vie avez-vous commencé à vous intéresser à la musique, Sheky?
Bon, je crois pas qu'il y ait une période, parce que moi, je suis un mélomane depuis mon petit âge.
Annie Kalonji, tous les dimanches sur Mix Vibration.
The rhythm of Africa, the pulse of the continent. This is Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
Right, let's catch you up with business news. And at the business news desk this morning is Winfrey Headbush.
Business news on Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
Thanks, Peter, and good morning. In our top business story at this hour, Nigerian energy company LNG Limited says it signed a 20-year gas supply contracts with NNPC Limited and other oil firms for the supply of 1.29 billion standard cubic feet per day. The company says these will support its liquefaction plants and expansion plans. The agreements, which include extension options, also involve firms such as Shell Nigeria and the Oando Group and are expected to mitigate long-standing upstream gas shortfalls while propelling Nigeria's energy transition and industrialization efforts. Libya's state-run National Oil Corporation says it will soon host a Libyan-US Energy Forum. The forum is aimed at boosting partnerships and investment in the North African country's oil and natural gas sector. Libya is one of Africa's biggest oil producers, but its oil output has been disrupted repeatedly in the chaotic decade since 2014. The company says the Energy Forum will be held with U.S. company Freedom First and will be attended by representatives from leading U.S. energy firms, along with Libyan investors and officials. South African power utility Eskom has reached a milestone of 100 consecutive days without load shedding. The company has attributed this to its generation recovery plan introduced in March last year and the hard work of its teams in stabilizing the grid. So far this financial year, Eskom has logged just 26 hours of load shedding and 144 days of reliable power supply. Spokesperson Daphne Mukwena says this is a significant breakthrough, building on 2024's progress when South Africans enjoyed 352 load shedding free days.
The resilience of our generation fleet continues to improve, with unplanned losses due to breakdowns now at 6,035 megawatts, well below the 7,000 megawatts threshold. The last time Eskom recorded unplanned losses below this level was on 27th of September 2020, when the figure stood at 6,829 megawatts. These operational gains are not just milestones, they are stepping stones towards larger goal, ending load shedding for good.
South African security strategist and retired Interpol ambassador Andy Mashaile says human trafficking syndicates are using people's desperation for jobs by luring them into all sorts of illegal activities. This after suspicious employment opportunities were advertised by social media influencers on TikTok, Instagram and other social media platforms, targeting women between the ages of 18 and 22. The Department of International Relations and Cooperation warned South African women not to fall for unverified foreign job offers. Mashaile has urged young people not to be impressed with social media influencers displaying flashy lifestyles without concrete background.
Young ladies and young gentlemen, we have a responsibility to talk to them now. Those who are listening who are going to school, wait for the right time, and the right time is when you are not in a hurry to be rich overnight. Verify if you see this advert on social media. As long as you cannot call that place, don't submit your application. Verify with the South African embassy in that country.
Oil prices have edged higher today after Ukraine stepped up attacks on Russia. The attacks have fanned concerns that Russian oil supply could be disrupted, while expectations of a cut in the U.S. interest rates have buoyed the outlook for global growth and fuel demand. Brent futures rose 3 cents to $67.76 this morning, and Brent has climbed slightly to $67.84 a barrel in the last 2 hours. And now for a look at the indicators at this hour. $1 US in Nigeria is trading at 1,533 naira. In Botswana, it's 13 pula 33. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 15. And in Zambia, it's 23 kwacha 10. Moving to the BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 42. Russia 80 rubles 36, India is 87 rupees 34, China 7 yuan 16, and South Africa $1 is trading at 17 rand 42 cents this morning. $1 is trading at 73 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,365 per ounce and platinum at $1,349 per ounce, while Brent crude oil, as mentioned previously, is at $67.84 a barrel this morning. And those are your business news. For any business news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459 for Channel Africa Business. I am Bontle Headbush.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
South Africa is stepping up its role as a continental leader in science, diplomacy, and engaged research. To discuss the upcoming 2025 Engaged Research Conference and Science Diplomacy Summer School, we're now joined by Dr. Konoswang Sabane, who's the Chief Research Specialist at the Human Sciences Research Council and Acting Director of the Strategic Partnership and International Unit. Dr. Sabane will share insights on how these initiatives aim to empower young researchers, strengthen research policy links, and also foster international collaboration. Thank you so much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the program, Dr. Sabane.
Thank you so much, Peter. And just to correct one thing, it's acting manager, not acting director.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Perhaps you can start by giving our listeners a fuller picture in terms of what exactly are Engaged Research Conference and Science Diplomacy Summer Schools, and how do they complement one another?
Okay. Just to say that we need to separate the two because there are two different activities that are happening at almost the same time, and yet they are not the same thing. So the Science Diplomacy Summer School is a summer school that is meant to equip emerging researchers, science diplomacy practitioners, diplomats with knowledge on how to effectively use science to solve some of the diplomatic challenges that the country and the region is working towards, or the country and the region are trying to solve. The Engaged Research Conference is a platform for practitioners, researchers, policy makers, and research users that are meant to engage on what are the most feasible ways in which research can be done for the people, but also by the people and with the people as well, and not without them.
I must admit, I'm hearing these terms for the first time. I wonder why science diplomacy and engaged research are such critical priorities, particularly for South Africa right now, both nationally and across the continent.
If you look at most of the challenges that South Africa and Africa in general are grappling with, you look at health issues, food security, unemployment, peace and security. All of them can best be addressed by carefully orchestrated, equitable, and mutually beneficial multilateral and international knowledge to policy collaborations. So they cannot just be solved in a vacuum. And the importance of these science, technology, and innovation collaborations are even more articulated in the Agenda 2063 and the Science, Technology, and Innovation of Africa Strategy 2024, to say that it's important that Africa starts looking at solving problems through science policy collaborations, both at an continental level, but also at an international level. So with that, we then see science diplomacy becoming a new currency if we are serious about transforming society. And then with that context, South Africa, it becomes very important for South Africa to strategically position itself as a strategic player in conversations on science diplomacy.
So what would you say are the core opportunities that this summer school will offer early career researchers and young professionals?
The biggest opportunity here is to be in dialogue with some of the key experts in science diplomacy, and to be in dialogue through some of the people that already have gathered experience and expertise in the technical skills, but also in the soft skills. So the goodness of this summer school is that it provides technical skills, access to expertise, but also access to some of the soft skills that a science diplomat requires, such as the art of negotiation, which you never get taught anywhere as a formal program. So the opportunities here are for meeting and engaging with the technical experts, but also engaging on some of these soft skills and forming collaborations with those that are already in the space.
Are there elements like mentorship, hands-on policy interface, or interdisciplinary exposure?
Yes, there are elements like that. So the summer school is designed in a way that there's going to be the lecture mode where people are taught something, but also the practical application in collaboration with those that are in policy and those that are in diplomacy. So it's going to be running, the program is going to be running concurrently as knowledge acquisition, but also practice oriented, and that provides that opportunity.
So engaged research is often described as research meeting real world needs. Can you highlight a case study perhaps from the past HSRC projects where this approach directly influenced policy or community outcomes maybe?
I think the closest example is the example of the health crisis that the globe was grappling with very recently, COVID. In that time, there was a number of research initiatives that the HSRC conducted in order to fully understand what are the community-based challenges that people are experiencing when they are about or when they are expected to adhere to some of the restrictions that were there, and to co-create with the communities what would be the best approaches then to deal with all that. So that is the closest example that I can think of. We also have a closer example of addressing food security issues, where it became very apparent with the research that we are doing at HSRC that in order to address issues on food security, it is very essential to not only work on STI innovations that are going to enhance agriculture, but to also work with communities to look at what are some of the indigenous knowledge activities that they have that can enhance agriculture and improve food security.
For our listeners perhaps interested in attending, when and where will these events take place and how can they register?
For the Engage Research Conference, the HSRC has a website. If you go to it has a page on the website. So if you go to the HSRC website, you can actually, and type Engage Research, you'll find a portal for the conference. There is also a sponsorship for those African colleagues that would like to attend and are emerging researchers but do not have the resources. For the summer school is happening on the 15th to 25 October 2025. 3 days are going to be online. The first 3 days are going to be online. The rest of the days are going to be residential in Johannesburg. We have not yet taken out the advert. The advert will be out soon. So I will encourage people to keep looking at the HSRC website for that advert.
What overarching vision or theme do you hope that your participants will take away from these initiatives? I mean, what kind of research, diplomacy, mindset or network are you aiming to foster going forward?
Going forward, I think from the two activities, the mindset I would like all the participants to walk away with is that we cannot solve problems in isolation. We need to be engaging across the sectors and across all stakeholders that are relevant to addressing the challenges that we have as a continent.
Other countries on the continent doing similar things?
Yes, so this convenings are not done in isolation. We are very much cognizant of the current geopolitics. So for the science diplomacy summer school in particular, We are working with some global and regional think tanks, such as the World Academy of Sciences, the Science Diplomacy Capital for Africa, the Academy of Sciences in Africa and in South Africa. So that is us looking at global and regional think tanks. But we are also working with the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, who works directly with diplomatic missions and our international relations in South Africa to make sure that our work is positioned internationally and we have access to other international organizations that are. Thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you. That's Dr. Konoswang Sobane from the Human Sciences Research Council sharing insights on the upcoming 2025 Engaged Research Conference and Science Diplomacy Summer School. Fancy words, hey?
The English here.
So we have Benjamin and Palesa who are going to be doing On the Move after the 9 o'clock news. And what can we look forward to?
Okay, we're going to start off the week with our GBV focus. And we're going to be looking at abuse that is of men this time. Men abuse. Yeah.
Men being abused.
Men being abused. I'm not sure we call the other one women abuse.
Okay.
This one is men abuse.
By women or by other men? What's the story?
I think it's broad. I think this one is a broader one.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. Then we
That's
go
a good
into
question,
our African View debate. We do that every Monday here. And today we're finding out if formal education is overrated in Africa today.
Yo, that's provocative.
Because Africans are forever studying, aren't we? Like, forever, you know.
And now with the era of social media, you're realizing that a lot of people are making money in non-traditional ways. So that means traditional education is also going to be not that relevant anymore.
So I think for me, the education is relevant or not relevant. It's the relevant education.
Yes.
That I think is the big issue. Is are we teaching the right things?
Sure.
So for example, things like history now. When I was at school, I had to remember dates.
Yeah.
I don't need that anymore.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because you can quickly go on AI and look for those dates. Yeah.
Clearly, then we should be teaching different things and what's more relevant to what's happening now. So I mean, for example, they don't teach you how to change a plug at home.
No.
Yeah.
And yet that's what you need.
Yeah.
You know.
In Zimbabwe, in Zimbabwe, I mean, that kind of education is still there.
Do you know what? For a long time, when I was at school, we were attached to the British system.
Yeah.
So I was studying the French Revolution.
Oh.
Yeah. That's what I did.
Nothing practical,
Nothing practical that's going to help me or even relevant to Africa.
Okay. And then in our final hour, we're going to be looking at nutrition, and we're going to take a look at how body composition, cultural habits, and even family traditions shape the way we eat, and why personalizing nutrition matters more than ever. This is a tough one because I like my pap and fleece.
And nobody said you should let it go. I think it's not about letting things go. I think it's just about that's why it should be personalized. So you can still have your pap and fleece. That's what you're used to. That's what
just
you
only
like.
once a week.
But maybe not every day, Beji.
So I'm putting it out there today. Today's day one of my no sugar regime.
Okay, I'm going to join you.
Let's do it. Let's start today.
Yeah. Start today.
Check in with each other every single day and
I'll
see what happens.
Okay.
Let's try it for 30 days and see what we look like in 30 days.
Okay, gents, we'll hold you to it. Asanda and I will be watching.
She's laughing quietly.
To a close as far as Rise and Shine is concerned. We'll be back tomorrow. Well, I'll be back tomorrow. Peter's taking some time off. And thank you so much for tuning in. Of course, stay tuned for On the Move coming up next. And
it's 9 o'clock. It's the news is next on Elensinsi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Looking at your top stories. Death penalty sought for DRC former President Joseph Kabila, and Vietnam prepares for the most powerful storm. Your latest news. Greetings to our listeners. The Democratic Republic of Congo's military auditor general, General Lucien Lekulea, has formally told a military court that he is seeking the death penalty for the former President Joseph Kabila, who is being tried in absentia for war crimes including homicide, rape and torture. Kabila spent almost 2 decades in power before stepping down in 2018. He has been abroad since late